Hello, this is Madeline,
And Chris.
and we're reading from the County Press for Friday the 31st of August, but first of all we're reading the Society news. On Tuesday the 4th of September there will be a coffee morning held in support of the Society at the Post Office in Knighton. All are welcome from 10:30 until 12 noon. The Ryde swimming group will be swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde. The swimming group has sole use of the pool during the session, and there are lifeguards in attendance. If you are interested in joining the group, please contact the Society to advise us of your swimming ability and for us to advise the waterside pool.
Wednesday the 5th of September. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House from 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake. The Society coffee morning will be joined by the Macular Degeneration group for their monthly meeting. We will also be holding the low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. The Wednesday social group is meeting at Millbrook House at 2 p.m. The entertainment this week is musical entertainment from Jeff Giles. The group lasts about 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake.
On Thursday, the social group is meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 until 2 p.m. You can have a chat and knit if you wish, and then later in the afternoon volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
Any other news? Saturday the 1st and 2nd of September. Sight for Wight will be attending Wolverton Manor Garden Fair, so please come along and say hello. We look forward to seeing you. Chris Kane, Marketing, Communications and Fundraising Manager, will be a guest on Vectis Radio on Tuesday the 4th of September between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m, where this year's short story writing competition will be officially launched. Find out who the celebrities are and how you can enter. If you live in the Newport area, you can tune in on 104.6 FM or online at www.vectisradio.com. In the near future, Sight for Wight will be offering a yoga taster session. If you think you would like to try this, one of the members, Danielle Burgess, has told us about her yoga experience and says, "I have recently taken up yoga and I am wondering why on earth I've never taken it up before now. I have attended about 5 of Sue's classes and I am already noticing the benefits from them. A better night's sleep, an even more sense of calm and less anxiety, a loosening up of my joints, and that's just for starters. The classes have been relaxing and tranquil. Sue gently talks you through all the different positions and movements, encouraging you to slow down and to make time for yourself. The technique of the deep breathing does take a little time to master, but once learnt, one can put it into practice at times of stress and anxiety. The gentle stretches are done slowly and you only need to go as far as you feel comfortable with. So do come along and give it a try. You have nothing to lose, just all your worries and cares for an hour or so. Details of the date and time for the taster session will be available soon.
To support our recruitment drive for volunteers, we will be advertising our vacancies on a regular basis in the hope that you may have a friend, relative, neighbour or contact who could be interested in volunteering with the Society. We have approximately 85 active volunteers who support the Society in many ways to provide the services we offer to our members. Our volunteer team are committed to their volunteer roles and have fun and social interaction along the way, which is of mutual benefit to everyone involved. Current vacancies are minibus drivers, dress for less retail support, escorts on our minibus, events ambassadors to support at island-wide events, fundraising by way of bucket collections at island supermarkets, sighted guides for our monthly and varied island walks, My Guide sighted guide escorts. Please contact Michelle Taylor, Volunteer Manager, on 52205 or email volunteers@iwsb.org.uk for further details.
Scaffolding news. Please find below a list of known footway obstructions for works, including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates, as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. Bay and Ventnor area. There is currently scaffolding at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade Sandown, 11A and 11B St John's Road Sandown, the Toy Master 103 Sandown and scaffold up in Albion Road, the Castle Pub 12 to 14 Fitzroy Street Sandown, 36 Melville Street Sandown, the Ocean Hotel High Street Sandown, 5 Station Road Sandown, Sandown Library 119 High Street Sandown, 16 Regent Street Shanklin, Soubretta House Grange Road Shanklin, the corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road Ventnor, Boniface Road and into Trinity Road Ventnor, 2 Eleanor House Grove Road Ventnor, Clive Barber's Jewellers High Street Ventnor. New scaffolding is due up at the Railway Bridge Avenue Road Sandown from the 10th of September, 34 Albert Street Ventnor from the 10th of September, Ivy Bank Marlborough Road Ventnor from the 1st of October with associated road closure. A new cherry picker is due up at Skew Bridge, Sandown Road Lake from the 10th of September. And there are currently hoardings at the Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade Sandown. There is currently a skip at 3 Clarence Road, Shanklin, and a new skip is due up at 10 Albert Street, Ventnor from the 10th of September.
And in the Cowes area, there is currently scaffolding at 93 High Street Cowes behind hoarding, Sainsbury's 129 to 130 High Street Cowes, 78 Park Road Cowes, 14 Market Hill Cowes, 12 Union Road Cowes, Cowes Library, Beckford Road Cowes, also up in West Hill Road, Geraldine's 3 York Avenue East Cowes. New scaffolds are due up at Totty's Fish and Chips High Street Cowes, awaiting new dates. And there are currently hoardings at 93 High Street Cowes. And there are current skips at 5 Gordon Road Cowes.
The Newport area. There is currently scaffolding at Domino's, St James's Street, Newport, 36 Orchard Street, Newport, 16 Drill Hall Road, Newport, Wight Grill, 144 High Street, Newport, Jewson's, Trafalgar Road, Newport, Santander, 26 St James's Street, Newport, and scaffolded also up around the corner in Pyle Street. New scaffolding is due up at Key Cottage, 12 Key Street, Newport from the 11th of September, Cafe Isola, Chapel Street, Newport from the 12th of September, and there is currently a skip at 38 Highfield Road, Newport.
And in the Ryde area, There is currently scaffolding at Boots 170 High Street Ride, Hills Court High Street and Newport Street Ride, 12 George Street Ride, 18 George Street Ride, 73 George Street Ride, and 23 St John's Road Ride. Watson Bullen Porter 9 High Street Ride, 12A High Street Ride, 62 High Street Ride, 91 High Street Ride, 137A High Street Ride, 58 The Strand Ride, and new scaffolding is due up at Wight's Fish and Chips 41 to 42 High Street Ride, awaiting new dates. And there is currently a crane at 19 Albert Street Ride in conjunction with a road closure. There are currently skips at 37 Longmead Road Ride, 9 Yelfs Road Ride, Walden, Nettleston Hill Seaview, Riding Light, Nettleston Green Seaview, and in the West Wight area there is currently scaffolding at Jojo's, School Green Road Freshwater, Broadway Garage, the Broadway Totland. There is currently a skip at 10 Heathfield Close Freshwater.
And now for this week's In Touch. Shared spaces. Blind people know the theory. The term shared spaces is a blurring of the lines between the road and the pavement. The thinking being that if cyclists, drivers and pedestrians simply slow down and look at each other, all will be well. It's a theory that has dictated more than 100 planning projects in towns across the UK. But that theory breaks down if you're blind or partially sighted. As a new government strategy calls for a halt to new shared space schemes, we check out a project in Lancashire and talk to Lord Holmes, whose 2015 report, Accidents by Design, called for their abolition. Presented by Peter Wight and produced by Kevin Corr.
And we're moving on now to the county press for Friday the 31st of August. And the main headline, "We're not safe." County press exclusive. Officer warns only 9 police on duty on Isle of Wight at night. Savage cuts to the police service have left just 9 officers covering the entire island at night, putting the police and the public at risk. Speaking exclusively to the county press, one serving officer revealed the minimum safe standard during the night shift was 1 sergeant and 8 PCs. And during the busy summer, he said even that standard had not always been met. On several occasions, he said, only 7 officers were on duty. Although shifts were extended on Friday and Saturday nights, providing more cover, the officer said it was simply not enough. We used to have 2 sergeants and 12 or 13 officers. If there are incidents in Yarmouth and Sandown, there aren't enough officers available. It's dangerous, you're putting them at risk. When you're such a small team, you try to protect each other. There were at least 5 officers off during the summer because they were assaulted. Assistant Chief Constable for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, Scott Chilton, agreed there were not enough staff. But he said the force had been hit particularly hard by funding cuts. Hampshire Constabulary has slashed its workforce by 23% and its budget by a staggering £80 million since 2010. And resources were allocated to where they were needed most, with emergencies and serious crime taking priority. Although it was not ideal, he said the reality of policing meant bringing extra officers over from the mainland to plug staffing gaps, cancelling rest days and using more special constables. It's been the busiest summer I can remember in 26 years of policing. We have had almost 5,000 more 999 calls to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary in July than in the same period 2 years ago, he said. For a long time we have been making the case we are the third lowest funded force in the country. We are underfunded by £48 million. This has an inevitable impact on how many officers are available. Despite these pressures, we will continue to do everything we can to target those who cause harm and misery to our communities. The number of assaults on police officers is absolutely unacceptable, and the responsibility we have to keep officers safe is absolutely essential.
ACC Chiltern said, "We have doubled the number of tasers. We try not to send officers to serious and violent incidents alone, although sometimes that's necessary. They need to be better protected." Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales and former Island Police officer John Apter said the so-called minimum safe standard was not safe enough. "We're not giving the public the service they deserve, even though we want to. Officers are doing their best. I don't blame the bosses. It's purely down to funding. It's completely unacceptable. Officers are being put at risk of considerable harm because there aren't enough of them to do their job properly. We are trying to provide the best possible training, but what we need is boots on the ground." ACC Chiltern said, "Our officers are passionate about what they do. Their selfless commitment to public service is something we see every single day. I think the public support the police, even though they are sometimes disappointed they don't get the speedy response they would like." The officer who spoke to the county press revealed police did not usually attend incidents including theft from vehicles, criminal damage, car crime and even minor assaults. Instead, victims were told to call 101. He said even burglary victims had to wait 6 or 7 hours for an officer. The back office cuts mean more time spent on admin and less on the front line. Plus, there are far too many managers, he said. Morale is the lowest I've known it. You want to do what's best for the public, and it's really frustrating when you can't. You want to get back to core policing, to catching criminals and locking them up, and you can't. The force is trying to show the government it can cope. It can't cope. It should say, "You're not giving us enough to do our job properly."
Joy as exam results continue to get better. Students on the Isle of Wight look to have achieved higher GCSE grades this year than in the previous years. Schools provided their provisional results to the Isle of Wight Council last Thursday, with the majority reporting improvements overall. This year is the first year of the new, more challenging exams, with results graded 1 to 9. The new system used in English and Maths last year has been extended to a further 20 subjects. More students have attained a grade 5 or above in English and Maths compared to last year, and the preferred government measure of secondary performance, Attainment 8, has increased. Councillor Paul Brading, Cabinet Member for Children's Services and Education, said, "I'd like to say a huge congratulations to all the students and staff for all their hard work and dedication. The new rating system doesn't directly correlate with the old A to G grades, so it's impossible to make comparisons across all subjects. However, we're really pleased with the progress in English and Maths, and it's definitely a step forward. We will now wait for all the results to be verified before we fully analyse them. Any students who wish to discuss their options after receiving their GCSE results can seek information and advice from the Council's Island Futures Service." Island MP Bob Seeley said, News GCSE results across the island have improved is brilliant, and I congratulate all those students who have done so well. Education continues to make great strides, with more island schools rated by Ofsted as good or better, along with this higher attainment. There is much to do to further improve, and no one is complacent, but we have now seen sustained progress, and this is most welcome. I also thank the Isle of Wight Council for the hard work it is doing to make sure this situation continues. Some schools declined to provide GCSE results to the county press, while others did not get the results to the paper in time for the copy deadline.
Appeal to save Castle from damaging weeds. A new kind of attack is threatening Carisbrooke Castle, and English heritage needs help from the public to defend it. The castles of England have survived sieges and bombardments, attacking armies and wars, but today the threats are invasive weeds penetrating damp and severe weather. The charity is spending £1.9 million on wall repairs, including removing deep-rooted harmful weeds such as ivy and valerian on its 66 castles across England. English Heritage is running a special crowd-funding appeal as part of its Love Castles summer season, calling on the public to help protect these stone landmarks for future generations to enjoy. At Carisbrooke Castle, scaffolding has been erected around the north section of the curtain wall and the castle keep for extensive work to remove overgrown vegetation and repair and protect the walls underneath. The project is planned to run into the autumn. Work includes removal of woody growth such as ivy, rooted in the walls, repointing open mortar joints, shoring up loose stones or voids, replacement of eroded stones and minor structural works to the entrance bridge. Across the country, more people are visiting castles than ever before. Since the start of May, a record 1.2 million visitors have enjoyed a day out at an English heritage castle, which is a 10% increase on last year. English Heritage is aiming to raise £50,000 via the new appeal. Kate Maver, English Heritage Chief Executive, said, "If these fortresses are to survive for future generations to enjoy, we need people's help to defend them today. Not from sieges or cannonballs, but from weeds and damp and the wind and the rain." Generous supporters of the appeal will receive rewards, including private tours of a castle of their choice and a chance to fire a cannon. Go to www.crowdfunder.co.uk/defend our castles. The Carisbrooke Castle donkey wheel is back in action. The 431-year-old wooden wheel was taken out of service after the heat wave caused it to dry out, leaving it vulnerable to damage.
News from Westminster and the island from Bob Seeley. Purpose of manifesto. How our island grows and improves are key questions to ensure we make it the best place it can be to live, work and play. To help this debate, I published my Island Manifesto last month. You can read it at islandvision.uk or at my website bobseeley.org.uk. The manifesto looks at how we can look after islanders better, protect our landscape, improve education, give our young people better life chances, and make the island the best place to grow old in Britain. Although I was only elected as an MP in 2017, I have spent a decade thinking about the issues the island faces. I was a resident here and then a county councillor before I was your Member of Parliament. That does not mean I can do it all. My role is often to support others, to make connections in Westminster and Whitehall, and to bring people together. For many of these projects to succeed, we will need the community to work together. Ultimately, it is what is achieved that matters, not who does it. I am aware that by proposing ideas to improve quality of life, I am opening myself to criticism from opponents who prefer to carp than contribute. If I wanted to play it safe, I wouldn't write such a document at all. However, I believe that such an approach is short-sighted and cowardly. It would also fail you, the people of the island. We need a debate about our future, how we can give more opportunities to young people on the island and get better quality jobs, how we continue to improve our education and healthcare, how we can use art and culture to enrich our lives. We need to press the ferry companies to offer a better deal to islanders, and we need to get more support from government. We also need to protect the environment. I would rather have ambition for our island and, working with others, see what can be achieved. Being the Member of Parliament for the Isle of Wight and representing its people in our Parliament is a wonderful privilege. The role is, for me, a labour of love. I am passionate about our island and its future. I hope that comes across in the manifesto, and with everything that I do during my time as your Member of Parliament. The manifesto does not profess to have all the answers, but it is an attempt to get us talking.
Cancelled ops up by 85%. Tremendous pressure on the island's health service has been blamed for a surge in the number of operations cancelled at the last minute. The Isle of Wight National Health Service Trust cancelled 87 non-urgent operations such as hip or knee surgeries in the 3 months to June, the latest period covered by NHS England data. The number leapt by 85% compared with the same period last year, when there were 47 last-minute cancellations. The data covers cancellations due to non-clinical reasons such as bed or staff shortages. Trust Director of Acute Services, Nikki Turner, said, "I'd like to apologise to anyone who has had their surgery cancelled. It is frustrating for our patients and for our staff." The NHS across the country, including the Isle of Wight, has been under tremendous pressure since the turn of the year. We do everything we can to avoid cancelling surgery and give patients as much warning as possible, but there are a variety of reasons why that is sometimes necessary, such as urgent, emergency and cancer patients taking priority and the need to comply with rules on single-sex accommodation. Where we have to cancel, this is an action of last resort, and we try to rebook patients we have had to cancel as quickly as possible. The Royal College of Surgeons, the RCS, warned the figures could be masking the true scale of the problem, as they do not include operations cancelled with more than 24 hours' notice. RCS Vice President Professor Cliff Sherman said, "Having an operation that has been planned for months cancelled at short notice can be very stressful for patients and their families." Alongside practical considerations such as wasted time off work and rescheduling the surgery, patients will have to deal with the mental anguish of preparing for surgery all over again. They will also have to endure waiting longer in pain and discomfort, possibly unable to work or complete day-to-day tasks for themselves. In some cases, their condition may worsen.
Symbolic wartime bell returned. The bell from the SS Menai, which sank off the Isle of Wight during the First World War, killing more than 600 South Africans, has been returned to the South African people. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Theresa May visited Cape Town to present the Menai Bell to the President Cyril Ramaphosa, more than a century after the ship sank on February the 21st, 1917. The SS Mendai was taking men from the South African Native Labour Corps to support the war effort on the Western Front when it sank. In total, 646 men, mostly black South African troops, drowned. It was the worst maritime disaster in South Africa's history, and the Mendai Bell has become a symbol of the country's wartime remembrance. Originally salvaged from the wreck in 1980s, the bell was given to the BBC's Steve Humphrey just last year. He handed it over to the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Following an anonymous phone call, the bell had been given to the reporter in a plastic bag at Swanage Pier, Dorset, with a note that said, "If I handed it in myself, it might not go to the rightful place. This needs to be sorted out before I pass away, as it could get lost." For more than a year it has been on display in the Sea City Museum in Southampton, while a permanent home was found. The Maritime and Coast Guard Agency's receiver of wreck, Alison Kentuck, said, "In these cases I have to consider the merits of each application to have the bell. But in the end, because this bell is such a poignant part of South Africa's history, it seemed only right to return it. It's good to know the Mendai Bell is back in South Africa, where it will be able to provide a focal point of remembrance for the people of South Africa, and in particular the families of those who died."
Swimmers rescued at sea. An off-duty Yarmouth RNLI crew member ordered 5 men out of the sea after he feared they would be swept away by the current. Alex Pym, 22, of Ningwood, has been on the Yarmouth crew for 5 years. He works for Needles Pleasure Cruises and was piloting his boat, the Summer Rose, with visitors on board when he spotted a group of 5 people in wetsuits and life jackets in the water near the Needles. He said, "One of the older guys accidentally inflated his life jacket. It looked as though they were struggling and they waved me over. They said they were swimming from Allen Bay around the Needles Lighthouse and back to Freshwater Bay. I warned them they were swimming against the tide and the swell conditions were picking up. They wanted to carry on, but I insisted they had to come on board. The older chap really needed assistance to get into the boat. I was worried he was going to start inhaling water, which could lead to secondary drowning. If they had carried on, there was no way they would have made it to Freshwater Bay. They could have been carried out to sea. At the RNLI, we run a Respect the Water campaign to teach people to never underestimate the sea. Alex is the 3rd generation of the Pym family to be part of the Yarmouth RNLI crew. His brother Richard is the mechanic, and they are followed in the steps of their father Stuart and grandfather Morris."
Revisiting Great Pilgrimage to Battlefields. 14 members of the island's Royal British Legion branches attended the 90th anniversary of the original Great Pilgrimage to the First World War battlefields in 1928. The huge event commemorated the 1928 pilgrimage, which took many families of those who lost their lives on the battlefields of France and Belgium to visit the cemeteries where their loved ones lay. The Royal British Legion felt it was appropriate to arrange a second Great Pilgrimage, GP90, on the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. Thousands of RBL members attended the international event, with members coming from as far afield as Hong Kong, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Africa and India. The 4-day tour culminated in an emotional event at the Menin Gate in Belgium on August the 8th, where the RBL standards were paraded through the Menin Gate and the last post was sounded, and every branch represented at the pilgrimage laid a wreath to the fallen. The island contingent was led by the County Parade Marshal, Terry Clarkson, the county standard bearer, Peter Atkinson, and the county president, Ian Ward.
Barry's bid to show off restored classic cars. In a leaking garage on Pan Lane, Newport, more than 30 restored classic cars lie hidden under dust sheets and bed covers. A mechanic all his life, Barry Price has accumulated the 35-strong collection of vintage classic cars. The former owner of Price's Garage, now run by his son and Isle of Wight councillor Matthew Price, is looking for a place to display his collection. Barry has submitted an application to the Isle of Wight Council to build a vintage car store on the land next to the garage so he can display his vehicles and his other collections. A self-described collector, Barry said he has 3 storage containers filled with old tools, 7,000 toy cars and other collectibles. Over the years, he has restored tens of cars built between 1927 and 1970. His favourite is his former work van from Fowler's, the garage he worked at from 1954 to 1976 before he joined his father's taxi company. One of 17 children, Barry worked as a driver for 9 months before he set up Price's. With many of the cars, he has restored them from nothing more than wheels and a shell. The Fowler's van is his oldest and took him 2 years to restore, including rebuilding the engine and refurbishing the interior with Isle of Wight wood. He also restored a Fowler's mechanics van, which belonged to his friend, the late Steve Hales. The car has been restored to its former glory, complete with vintage mechanics tools. Until 5 years ago, Barry's everyday car was a Wolseley 1550 from the 1958. Barry has been servicing the island's cars for decades, and one loyal customer left him her blue and white Wolseley 1660 when she died. He said, "I looked after it from brand new. I'd been doing the servicing on it since 1963. The father of 10 said the business was a family affair, and his youngest daughters help him polish the car's brass on a weekly basis. His youngest son, Anthony, helps at the garage and also loves classic cars. 2 of the cars, former police cars, are now used as wedding transport, and a pale blue Mini was entered into Newport Carnival. However, many of the cars are confined to the garage." Barry said, "I'd love to have somewhere to display them properly so people can come and have a look."
More than 14,000 signed Ferry Fares petition. A petition calling on the government to regulate ferry fares has been signed by more than 14,000 people, which means the government is obliged to respond. The online parliamentary petition, created by Sarah Johnston, states, "With current ferry prices being unregulated, companies are permitted to charge whatever they wish for crossings. UK residents living in such places as the Isle of Wight are charged excessive amounts for commuting or travel to see family and friends. Likewise for tourists going the other way. Overall, the inflated ferry prices are hurting the economy of islands around the UK." Wightlink boss Keith Greenfield would not be drawn on the petition. He said, "It's not something I really want to comment on. It comes around, there will always be discussion on ferry fares." As the county press went to print yesterday, the petition had been signed by 14,569 people. At 10,000 signatures, the government is obliged to respond. If it reaches 100,000 signatures, the issue will be debated in Parliament.
Mystery over fire aboard car ferry. Investigations were continuing this week into the cause of an engine fire on board Wightlink's Wight Skye ferry, the second to hit the vessel in less than a year. In an exclusive interview with the county press, Wight Chief Executive Keith Greenfield revealed the engine which burst into flames during Sunday's 6:15 p.m. crossing from Yarmouth was a new unit. It was fitted after the previous engine exploded last September, causing serious burn injuries to the hands and face of an engineer. He has since been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and has not returned to work. Speaking on Wednesday, Mr. Greenfield said, "The unit in September was discarded, so this is a brand new engine. Neither incident should have been possible. We absolutely need to get to the bottom of it and understand why an engine would fail in that sort of way." Luckily, no crew were in the engine room at the time of Sunday's fire. Wight has now issued a mandate that crew are not allowed in the engine room while the ship is travelling. Before, staff were only advised not to enter. A report on last week's incident gave recommendations to Wight, Volvo and its supplier RKM. These included major maintenance work being carried out off-ship and supplying wear detectors to alarm staff of if an engine may fail. "We have implemented the recommendations, but there hasn't been any major works on this engine, so it has not been moved off-ship." When asked about wear detectors, Mr. Greenfield said it was an issue for Volvo rather than Wight. "I'm not going to try to justify it," said Mr. Greenfield when asked how a ship's engine could catch fire twice in 1 year. "At the moment, we don't fully understand. If we did, it wouldn't have happened." Sunday's fire was out within 15 seconds thanks to the ship's fire extinguishing system. Mr. Greenfield added, "I'm very pleased with the reaction of the captain, the crew and the ship's safety system, but it's our job to deliver a great service and a service people can be confident in, so we'll do everything we can to get to the bottom of this. We have to." Wight Yarmouth to Lymington service will not be affected by Wight Sky being out of action, as Wight Sun will be brought over from Fishbourne to Portsmouth route, where Victoria of Wight will take up the slack.
Special seat is home for bees. A sculpture that not only doubles up as seating, also provides a home for solitary bees and other insects. Created by Dave Badman from Art Ecology, the sculpture has been placed at the Dodner Creek and Dixon's Copse Nature Reserve. It marks the completion of the Dodner Rediscovered project, led by countryside charity Gift to Nature. The lottery-funded project has seen island archaeologists and wildlife experts literally unearth the secrets of the site and reveal its rich industrial and natural heritage. The project has included the excavation of old cement kilns known as the Mummy's Caves at the former West Medina Mills site. In 1851, the Medina cement made there by Charles Francis and Sons won the prize medal at the 1851 Great Exhibition, a huge success that resulted in the company becoming one of the country's leading cement manufacturers. The team has also laid a new nature trail around the reserve, and the kilns can be viewed from the cycle path. Gift to Nature's Daisy Steinberg said the project had unearthed an extraordinary tale about mills, cement, renewable power and nature. She said, "The sculpture reflects the 3 mill uses of the site over the past 200 years. First as a flour mill, the millstone at the centre, then as a cement mill, what it's made from, and finally the current use at the centre of the wind turbine industry. The bioreceptive part is the centre, which is hollow and filled with sand and straw to provide a habitat for insects, especially solitary bees. We have seeded the area with wild flowers which will provide a nectar source. People can sit on the sculpture and also park their bikes there, so it's a brilliant rest stop. Wight building materials, Vestas blades and DTM lent a hand, providing the materials and moulds for the sculpture and helping to manoeuvre the heavy components into place.
Emily is one of the top students in the country. High-flying Emily Bell scored a stunning GCSE success at Ryde Academy, achieving the maximum grade 9 in 11 subjects and a grade A in her 12th. Her results almost certainly put her among the top 1 or 2% of students in the country who took the new style exam. Emily, 16, from Bullen Village, Ryde, said her achievement was all down to how you navigated the exam system. She said, "I am very happy. I wanted to do well. If you put in the work, that is actually what matters. It is as much about being able to improve as being able to achieve." Emily scored the top 9 grade in biology, chemistry, English language, English literature, religious studies, physics, Spanish, geography, history, maths and music, plus a grade A in statistics. Emily's achievements also garnered praise from the Academy's Vice Principal Lee Merritt. He said, "There is no arrogance about her at all. She is just a nice individual." Emily is set to study A-levels in maths, chemistry, English literature and law at Island Innovation Sixth Form Centre, Newport. However, she is unsure exactly what career path to take. She joked, "I have loads of time."
Wight Bell's Mass Dance. Wight Bell's Morris side will be holding their annual day of dance on Sunday. Dancing will start simultaneously outside Gossip's Cafe and in the Harbour Masters car park, Yarmouth, from 10:15 a.m. after welcoming visiting mainland sides off the ferry. At the same time in Ryde, dancing will start next to the hovercraft terminal from 10 a.m. following the arrival of further visiting sides. 11 mainland sides will be travelling to the island, in addition to the Isle of Wight's own Moonshine, Border, Morris, to participate. Lunchtime will be spent on Shanklin Seafront, where all sides will perform between 12:15 p.m. and 2:15 p.m, before travelling on to Arreton Barnes to perform from 3 p.m. to 4:45 p.m.
Vectis shortlisted. Vectis Radio has been shortlisted in the annual National Community Radio Awards. The station, based in Newport, has picked up nominations in the Community Development Project of the Year category for its 4Ps project, which helps young people build confidence and communication skills using radio as a form of therapy.
And that's all we have time for today. So it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Chris.
Get set, go.
Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the County Press. I'm Howard.
And I'm Pauline.
We'll start with the letters section. This is from J. Gibbons of Ryde. I note that our MP suggests the Isle of Wight Council takes over one of the 3 ferry companies. Do we want a precious link to be run, however indirectly, by the people who run the floatie?
And this is a similar letter from Ian McKee of Totland Bay. Taxation would have to fund state control of ferries. Our MP, Bob Seeley, has confirmed his massive lurch towards the extreme left of politics by suggesting the ferry companies be subject to a compulsory purchase and be nationalised in the hope of gaining more populist support. Firstly, where does he think that the money, several hundreds of millions, will come from? The answer is taxation, of course. How will this be raised and how will the donors feel about it? Secondly, why does he think the government is better placed to run a transport system than the private sector? Bob Seeley has already decried HS2 as a waste of public money, so why does he think that a government-run ferry service would be a better use of taxpayers' money? Oh wait, early election looming.
This is from Julie Bishop in Northwood. I'm writing with regard to the report in the County Press on 24th of August on the Northwood Parish Council meeting on August 21st to discuss the application for land to the rear of 391 Newport Road, Northwood, which was attended by 150 plus people. This application is for 66 properties to be built on this site, with 2 exits onto the main Newport Cowes Road. They decided unanimously to vote against the application. The land in question is Greenland. It's sited outside the planning boundary and is a registered mineral site for gravel. It's also in the Solent Protection Area. This land has been used for more than 50 years solely for grazing and has not been ploughed during that time. Because of this being such a natural undisturbed habitat, there are countless amounts of wildlife species here, particularly badgers, barn owls and hedgehogs. Besides this, it's totally out of character with the surrounding area. Plans have already been passed for more than 500 properties on the former J.S. Wight site and 90 plus on Summit and Reservoir. I'm sure this will cover the government's requirements for some time, with still many brown sites available to build on. The services in this area are totally unable to manage this development. At present, the drainage system overflows with raw sewage into the playground of Northwood Primary School when it's overloaded. The medical centre is full to capacity and functioning with only half the required doctors already. St Mary's Hospital is in the same position, and the dentist at the medical centre is closing in September, with patients having to go to either Newport or Bembridge. It's previously been recognised by Island Roads, on behalf of the Highway Authority, that the Newport to Cowes Road carries on average more than 23,000 traffic movements a day. At present, it can take up to 5 minutes to exit from Oxford Street and Coronation Avenue.
Not the way to be a councillor, from Chris Corey, Wootton Bridge. The Isle of Wight Council member for Whippingham Osborne and member of Whippingham Parish Council, Councillor Julia Baker-Smith, has played fast and loose with the electorate. Having been elected as an independent councillor in May 2017, she decides only days later that she is actually a Labour councillor, something that obviously only occurred to her when the votes were safely counted. Within a few months, we find commitments on the mainland prevent the councillor from attending council meetings. She then attempts to cover her tracks by indulging in a bit of identity politics, comparing her situation to that of working fathers. The opportunity to represent your community is a privilege, not a personal right. Councillor Baker-Smith should do the honourable thing. And the editor's footnote says, to be fair to Councillor Baker-Smith, she has only missed 3 meetings since September last year, 1 full council meeting, 1 scrutiny committee and 1 appeals subcommittee.
This is from Rob Morehouse in Cowes. Labour is not alone in having to face up to its Brexit demons, but seeking to reconcile its competing factions out of the public gaze is an untenable and dishonest position. Local party chairman Julian Critchley's wish to keep the issue an internal secret is ill-becoming of a party that seeks to represent the island and indeed lead the country. Indeed, the failure over decades to have a full and frank national or local discussion about what it means to be part of the European Union fomented the exact conditions that created the Brexit electoral schism and the ensuing chaos. You would have thought Labour might have been the mainstream party to have led that discussion, even at this late stage. Apparently not. But I don't fancy Mr Critchley's keep quiet and hope for the best tactic will fool enough Brexiteers to vote Labour, nor indeed natural Labour voters to stick with a party that currently looks like a sheepish schoolchild who knows the answer but is afraid to put his hand up for fear of being shouted at.
Reform Folly, from Bruce Overton, Portsmouth. It should be encouraging news to hear that HMP Isle of Wight is meeting most of its targets. What is not such good reading, however, is the fact violent attacks perpetrated on prison staff and inmates are still on the increase year in, year out. Even Francis Crook of the publicly funded Howard League for Penal Reform is concerned about the high rate of assaults in prison. But have no fear, because Miss Crook has the answer to the problem. According to an article in the Times, it is very simple. Inmates who break prison rules should not have extra time added onto their sentence by any loss of remission. So when a member of staff or inmate is attacked, the perpetrator should just get a slap on the wrist and then go home halfway through their sentence. Is this woman serious? Above the gate lodge of the now closed down Shrewsbury Prison is a bust of John Howard, the 18th century prison reformer from whom the Howard League get their name. Glance up at that bust and you might even see him shaking his head in disbelief.
This is from Julian Critchley in Ryde. I'm starting to think Bob Seeley considers islanders to be mugs. This isn't the first time he's said something which will sound good, but which he knows has no chance of being implemented under a Tory government. When islanders were concerned about St Mary's, Bob popped up to make soothing noises. Then his government cut St Mary's anyway. When people were concerned about cuts to local services, Bob started talking about a new deal for the island. Then his government carried on and cut the island's budget again. Now islanders are rightly expressing their outrage at being exploited like cash cows by the ferry companies, and here's Bob again, publicising his questions to his own government. Would anyone like to make a bet on whether this Conservative government will take action in the public interest against highly profitable and well-connected private companies? I don't think islanders are going to fall for stunts like this. We're not fools. Ultimately, the cause of these problems is a Conservative Party wedded to cutting public services while protecting the wealth of rich companies and individuals. Bob can never be part of a solution to our problems because he's part of the party which is the cause of them.
Now, two wards have much more in common, from Bob Blezard, Sandown. A boundary review of the Isle of Wight Council wards is taking place. I have noted a submission by the Labour Party to the local Government Boundary Commission for England. It suggests Sandown North is combined with part of Bembridge. Some of your readers may remember a similar proposal at the 2007 review, which was not popular. At the time, Councillor Ian Ward objected in a letter as follows. Councillor Ward said, "The population of each community have little in common with each other, and I believe the residents of Bembridge will consider themselves to be in a higher social category to the residents of Sandown. I am sure they will believe they and their community have been denigrated. The cultures of the communities are considerably different. Sandown is a working-class community with sizable social housing. Its main economic source is that of a basic seaside town dependent on low-grade tourism. This differs considerably from Bembridge, which has very little visible commercial activity and is a community of affluent, genteel business or professional residents, many of them retired." At the time, I found Councillor Ward's comments disgraceful in talking down Sandown, the town he was and is privileged to represent, but also for his ignorant and inaccurate stereotyping, and I was moved to complain to the then council leader. The current boundary review has, however, started me reflecting. Sandown and Bembridge have more similarities than I previously imagined. Both communities have local councils permanently engaged in internecine warfare and contemptuous of the views of local residents who ask questions at meetings or express them through public votes. There also appears to be an acceptance paid officials can answer questions from the public in a condescending or sarcastic way, or in some cases with gratuitous rudeness. While I do not favour Labour's boundary proposals, it does now seem, in a number of respects, the two communities are more similar than some would think.
Now moving on to our next section, which is looking back, starting with 100 years ago, August 31st, 1918. Described as a blessing for Newport, Mr. Franklin, a man described as the most expert optician in England, agreed to stay in Newport to test islanders' eyesight. Mr. Franklin said he'd tested the eyesight of more than 100,000 people in London during the previous 5 years and had a successful store in Regent Street. A cowboy's mysterious death has puzzled the town. The 6-year-old had suffered from rickets but had otherwise been in good health. He'd gone blackberry picking with his 2 older brothers, and all of them had eaten a few of the fruits, but the other 2 boys remained well.
75 years ago, on August the 28th, 1943, East Cowes Cricket Club arranged 2 charity cricket matches in aid of the Hampshire Regiment Prisoners of War Fund. The teams were made up of East Cowes and Cowes residents, and the competition included how much money they could each raise. At a dance at the town hall afterwards, music was provided by the dance band of the Hampshire Regiment. A fire destroyed a barn and all its contents in Northwood. Messrs. G. H. Drudge and Son of Crocker's Farm lost £500 worth of unthrashed corn. The outbreak was discovered by soldiers returning to the camp, who raised the alarm, but by the time the fire service arrived, the fire had a firm hold of the building.
50 years ago, August the 24th, 1968, 4 years after its closure, Ventnor's former Royal National Hospital was set to get a new breath of life. Ventnor Council purchased the building to create an open space and amenities centre and to try to rejuvenate the building. Councillor Davis said these changes will pay for themselves and bring life back to the now derelict place. An unidentified flying object, a huge ball of coloured light, was seen by a Newchurch housewife for 10 minutes. The housewife told the county press she was outside her cottage at 9 p.m. calling her cat when she saw the object travelling westward. She called her husband, and for some time they watched the object, far larger than an aeroplane and round in shape, glow yellow and white.
25 years ago, on August the 27th, 1993, the Office of Fair Trading was drawn into West Wight's Battle of the Buses when a small bus operator accused Southern Vectis of trying to drive it out of town. Southern Vectis found itself in competition with Wight Line when both companies ran open-top double-deckers on the Allen Bay to Yarmouth route. When Southern Vectis broke ranks with a 50p return ticket, Wight Line accused it of trying to put it out of business. Furious Sandown Town councillors were determined not to be beaten by yobs who scrawled graffiti on their freshly painted mural. The vandals struck in the pedestrian tunnel at the end of the fairway before anti-graffiti varnish could be applied.
10 years ago, August 28, 2008, the Olympic baton was handed over to this country in a big way on the island. The Isle of Wight flew the largest Olympic handover flag, a huge spinnaker bearing the London 2012 logo on the 32-foot yacht Paddywhack as it passed the Needles. Young crew members from the IYWAC hoisted the spinnaker at the exact moment Britain became the next Olympic host. It was decided vandals who caused £40,000 worth of damage to Ventnor Middle School would not face court action. The decision was heavily criticised by Town Councillor and former Governor Councillor Buster Bartlett, who said it's disgusting they'll not be prosecuted. Can't some action be taken against them or their parents?
And now for the White Memories article headed "We Were Ready for Nuclear War." It's written by Alan Stroud. Weren't the 60s good? We had pirate radio, the mini, colour TV, and what was the other thing? Oh yes, we were all going to die in a nuclear war. The problem was Russia and America weren't getting on too well in the 1960s, and things got so bad that in 1963 the government issued a guide to surviving a nuclear attack. It was called Advising the Householder on Protection Against Nuclear Attack. In it, we were advised, and these are actual quotes, to take a travelling rug if you have to flee your home, and if you have to go outside, put on gumboots, a hat and a coat done up to the neck. Who could argue with that sound advice? In 1965, the BBC made a film, The War Game, a drama in documentary style showing just what would happen to us in a nuclear war. Well, no sooner had they made it than they were banned. Then they banned it, saying it was too horrifying for broadcast. Apparently, we could cope with the real thing, but we weren't allowed to see it on the telly first, and it took them another 20 years to get round to showing it. In the mid-1960s, the government set up an early warning system to let us know when a nuclear bomb was on its way, the so-called 4-minute warning. Bunkers were built across Britain, and the Royal Observer Corps, known as the ROC, was set up. a volunteer civil defence force which in times of trouble would man the bunkers which were linked through the GPO telephone network. On the island, several Royal Observer Corps bunkers were built at Freshwater, on the golf course, at Newport in a field off Long Lane, and at Knighton in a field off Barrack Chute. They were kitted out with what was known as WB400 receivers, loudspeaker units connected to the national warning system. Extra receivers were installed at police stations, hospitals, post office, and even a few rural pubs, all maintained on the quiet by the island's telephone engineers, lest anyone should fear national secrets are being revealed here. The existence of the shelters and the ROC posts on the island is no longer classified. Information about them is freely available on the internet. In a past life as a telephone engineer, I was occasionally involved in the maintenance of parts of the WB400 network. There was a receiver in the Wight Horse Inn at Whitwell, and in the early 1970s I was sent there to service it. I discreetly asked the elderly landlady where the receiver was, and after gazing into the distance for a while, she said, "You mean that box thing over there?"
Sure enough, over there was the box thing, on open display on a window sill in the main bar. Out of curiosity, when I finished the test, I asked her if by any chance she knew what the box thing was actually for. She gave me an old-fashioned look and said, "I haven't got a clue, my dear." Things were in an equal state of precision readiness at the Knighton ROC post. The all-important circuit, which would relay the life and death messages to the bunker, was designated high grade. In reality, things were rather different. The circuit was carried part of the way to the bunker on rickety old telegraph poles before it went underground. The poles only just managed to stay upright in good weather. The chances of them surviving a nuclear holocaust were nil. Added to which, the bunker was only 12 foot underground. Still, what did that matter if you had your travelling rug, gumboots, and a coat buttoned up to the neck? On a maintenance visit to the bunker in 1972, being young and reckless, I took some forbidden photographs, including one showing the bomb power indicator. If a nuclear bomb really had gone off nearby, by the time the needle had moved into the danger zone, the man in the bunker might just have had time to think, "Is it me, or is it getting hot in here?" before he was reduced to a handful of ash, unless he had his gumboots on, of course. Slightly more at Market, underneath St Boniface Down, there was a full-scale nuclear shelter, complete with beds and food supplies. The complex occupied the large area underneath part of what was the Civil Air Authority's radar site. It was later refurbished as the Isle of Wight Council's Emergency Command Centre for use in time of nuclear attack. At the time, the command centre's existence was a closely guarded secret, known only to the workmen who built it, BT staff, most of County Hall, and to the entire population of Ventnor. In the 1980s, a member of staff put a handwritten notice up in one of the corridors. It read, "In the event of a nuclear attack, any member of staff unfortunate enough to witness the initial bomb blast should immediately bend over, place his head between his knees, and kiss his arse goodbye." Well, eventually Russia and the West kissed and made up, so in 1991 the centre was abandoned and sealed off with concrete slabs, leaving only the current air traffic control building. Apparently there's no need for shelters and bunkers anymore. The two most powerful nations in the world are now in much safer hands. Hang on, that wouldn't be put in Trump, would it? Right, where are those gumboots?
And the first My View column is written by Jonathan Young. The heading is, "It's a really moving experience." Have you tried moving house lately? It's never been exactly stress-free, and my impression on taking the plunge after a good many years is that it ain't getting any easier. As soon as we've sold up, my better half and I are moving into rented while we house hunt. According to traditional wisdom, that's a smart thing to do because it gives you 3 big advantages. It gives you more time to look around for the home of your dreams. It avoids the disappointment of lining something up only to see it snatched away by a breakdown in the chain. And it puts you in the enviable position of cash buyer, able to push yourself to the front of the queue, which forms as soon as the dream property comes on the market. OK, that's a theory. It's actually not quite like that. The hurdles faced by the would-be renter are considerable. Being in a chain suddenly begins to seem like a piece of cake, but rented it shall be, thanks in part to the kindness of strangers, and we must now turn our attentions in earnest to a permanent bolt hole. But where shall it be? The seven wonders of the Isle of Wight, the stuff of tourist mugs and tea towels, could be a starting point, but they're a bit hackneyed and out of date. Never mind, take someone else's idea and adapt it. Cows you can't milk. Nope. Cows where you can't get from one side of it to the other. Fresh water you can't drink. Indeed not. Just drink in the culture, I told my wife. Lady Tennyson's tomb, her old man was sneaked off to Poets' Corner, of course, and a statue of Jimi Hendrix in Julia Margaret Cameron's garden. Apropos, not very much at all. Hard to please some people. Or how about Shalfleet, whose, quotes, poor and simple people sold their bells to buy a steeple? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. It goes on the list. There's always Bembridge, about whose civic problems this column has written before. Superficially lovely, and indeed frequently self-described as such. Just below the surface, rather less so, to the point where brawling, rather than community cohesion, has become the norm, and with a Warden Hodges attitude towards transparency, probably the place to go if you're up for a challenge. We shall also consider Godshill, largely on account of an excellent eatery there. Shan't say which one, but first we shall need to do some due diligence among the locals about two of the village's enduring mysteries, both of them apparent miracles. First, we want the lowdown on how the church actually did get from the bottom of the hill to the top. Our informants will need to be about 1,400 years old, so I rate our chances as slim. Second, and this may be more achievable, how is it that in all these years no pedestrian has been killed trying to share the road with trucks and tourist coaches in a main street overwhelmingly pavement-less? I think we may well opt for Seaview, where dogs are allowed on the beach and it's always Pym's o'clock. We may get in just in time for the end of season red trousers sale.
The second article on this page is by Alan Marriott and is titled, Do We Want It First or Want It Right? Sitting in my work cave one morning this week, I received a call from an angry friend, and for once it wasn't a friend angry at me. This is a man who gives a lot of his own time to ensure people on the island stay safe and secure. He doesn't do it for money or fame or glory, he just does it. And he was annoyed, probably putting it lightly, because as his organisation was rescuing somebody last week, a less than scrupulous member of our noble profession stuck a camera in the face of the person they'd just brought ashore and snapped away. Sure enough, much to the distress of the lucky soul who was being saved, their picture appeared on a news website. It does not sit well for the editor of a newspaper to come over all pious about the moral line he will not cross, but there are standards that should be adhered to. Where I believe the line has become blurred is in the no-filter approach towards the web. I get criticised because we're sometimes beaten to the scoop by news organisations, and, like any news professional, that sometimes hurts. But sometimes it doesn't worry me, and this is because on every occasion we like to get the story right rather than get it first. The term breaking news is one of the big drivers for the media these days, and in some ways always has been. However, web and social media channels have ramped it up to new levels. But what is more valuable to you, the public, being first or being right? Taking pictures at a fire or road accident that are going to upset and distress those already suffering, or stepping back and thinking of the consequences? I could give many examples of frighteningly aggressive but understandable reactions to media crossing the line in these circumstances, but that would be too dog-eat-dog. Instead, I'd ask the public to appreciate the way our reporters try their best to get it right and do it the right way. We report with no fear or favour when it comes to holding councils, health chiefs and yes, even ferry companies to account, but we try and show compassion and humanity in the way we deal with court cases, inquests and incidents such as fires or traffic accidents. I'm not looking for a pat on the head or any praise for this statement, and I'm first to admit we don't always get it right. but our membership of the Independent Press Standards Organisation means we can be held to account and fined heavily if we transgress. The county press has been around for a long time and will be here for a long time to come, serving the island and its people.
The Behind the News article is written by Bill Bradshaw, and the title is Remembering the Heroes of Dieppe Raid. The weather at Shanklin Chine on Sunday, August the 19th, had been unreliable, misty, a fresh breeze from the west, but less unreliable than in the days before the infamous Dieppe Raid 76 years ago. Then, in the darkest days of the Second World War, a smash-and-grab raid by the Allies on the Normandy coast was due to take place in July, but was stalled by inclement weather. Conditions were finally favourable on August the 19th, 1942, and Operation Jubilee was launched from the island, with more than 6,000 infantrymen, mainly Canadian, supported by 1,000 British troops and a clutch of United States Army Rangers. Prominent in the British support were the Royal Marine Commandos, who had prepared for their first action since their formation by training in Shanklin Chine. Many lessons were learned that would be vital in the planning for D-Day 2 years later, but they came at a fearful cost. Of the 6,086 men who made it ashore, 3,623 were either killed, wounded or captured. The Royal Navy lost 33 landing craft and 1 destroyer, and the RAF suffered heavy losses. On Sunday, several grateful generations later, those who perished on the raid were honoured and remembered as the weather smiled again, the mist lifted and the sun shone on the Dieppe Memorial at the Chine.
The service of thanksgiving and remembrance was organised by the newly reformed Isle of Wight Royal Marines Association, RMA, branch and the 40 Commando Royal Marine Commando Association. Commander Laurie Southall was in the Chine in August 1942 training for Dieppe with 40 Commando, and he was back at the same spot on Sunday. Laurie, a Midlander, is now 95, but he was determined to travel to Shanklin on Dieppe Day, and he took his place at the memorial, proudly wearing his green beret, his Royal Marines tie firmly knotted. He was the only veteran able to attend, but he was in good company. There was 40 Commando's current commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Maynard, and Brigadier General Spencer, retired, Chief Executive of the Royal Marines Association Worldwide. From the island were the Lord Lieutenant Major General Sir Martin Wight, High Sheriff Gyorja Minghella Giddens, Anne Springman, President of Isle of Wight RMA branch, and Lady Piggott, widow of the late General Sir Robert Piggott. The service was conducted by the Reverend Tony Richards, and wreaths were laid by Colonel Maynard on behalf of the serving 40 Commando, Island RMA Chairman David Rowlands on behalf of the branch, and veteran Laurie Southall on behalf of 40 Commando RM Association. As the sun lowered and glinted across the Chine, bugler Leaky Sheard played the last post, and after a minute's silence, the Reveille. Martin Lovell, ex-RSM 40 Commando, then read the Kohima epitaph, somehow particularly apt on Dieppe Day. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow we gave our today. Across the Chine, the breeze chattered in the trees, no doubt evoking memories for Laurie Southall of the orders and urgings in that same gorge 76 long years ago. It was a touching moment. Then the bugler sounded the sunset bugle call, traditionally played to mark the end of the military day, its final refrain a touching note to mark the Dieppe raid. There was still time for Laurie to make a personal revelation to me. My father, Leslie Bradshaw, was in 40 Commando, billeted in Shanklin and at Dieppe in August 1942. He won the military medal for his actions there. He survived the war only to die young, aged 48, in 1971. Yet Laurie whispered in my ear, I knew your father. I have a photograph of him with me in Ryde back in 1942. There was already emotion in the air, but Laurie's words made my hair stand on end. Within days that photograph was with me. Memories of Dieppe live on. Anne Springman announced at the Chine, the 40 Commando Royal Marine Commando Association is raising funds to purchase a new standard for the reformed branch. So far, more than £400 has been raised. The new standard is set to be dedicated at a service at Carisbrooke Castle or Newport Minster later in the year.
And now for What's On. We begin with the first two items. A heart care club is held at the West Wight Sports and Community Centre each Wednesday between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. The club is run by a qualified British Association coronary and pulmonary rehab instructor. And secondly, the Isle of Wight Chamber Health Team is offering a free NHS health check to anyone aged 40 to 74 who lives or works on the island and who has not received an NHS check in the last 5 years, and it's being offered outside the Yarmouth Harbour office on Wednesdays from 10:30 a.m. Patients should not be on medication for high blood pressure, heart condition, high cholesterol, stroke, atrial fibrillation, kidney disease or diabetes.
The 2018 Red Funnel Isle of Wight Literary Festival has just opened ticket sales for this year, and popular sessions will be selling out fast. The festival, now in its 7th year, takes place from October 11th to 14th at Northwood House, Cowes. It will welcome more than 60 authors, presenters and literary figures in a festival that has something for all. Island residents can hear some of the very best UK authors and presenters, choosing from a rich and varied programme. The festival will be opened by Terry Wight on the Thursday afternoon, talking about creativity and solitude, referencing 2 of his latest books.
There will be a coffee morning on Thursday from 10:30 a.m. to noon at the Phoenix Project at 36 Salters Road, Haylands, at the end of the road past Haylands Farm. Join us for tea or coffee and cake, and then take part in some card games or craft. This event is run by adults with learning disabilities, supported by the Phoenix Project staff and Age UK Isle of Wight volunteers. Transport may be available. If you live in Ryde or the Binstead area, please telephone 810172 for more information.
Mountbatten's popular concert series launches for the 2018-19 season on Thursday with local duo the Mojo Mamas. Supported and sponsored this year by Red Funnel, Mountbatten's established concert series is held at 7:30 p.m. on the first Thursday of every month in the John Cheverton Centre. This year's lineup sees a host of Isle of Wight talent, including Chelsea Rose, Jukebox Jazz, Jim Thorne and 555s. Full details are available in the events section at www.mountbatten.org.uk and on Facebook. Chief Executive Nigel Hartley said, "We're so incredibly grateful to Red Funnel, which has generously sponsored this year's Mountbatten concert series. Since it began in 2016, the monthly concerts have become quite popular and offer a great evening of entertainment. The aim of these events is not predominantly to raise funds, although donations are always welcome, but rather to try to dispel some myths about what a hospice is like. We want to show visiting our hospice is not scary or depressing, but a place where a warm welcome is on offer to everyone, whoever you are and whatever your background. Please do come and support our fantastic lineup of local musicians who are performing throughout the next 12 months. Admission is £10 and includes a selection of canapés and a glass of wine during the interval. Entry is free to people being supported by Mountbatten."
Every fortnight from 10 until noon, the Apollo Theatre Newport is open to the public. Drop in and have a coffee and cake. It's open tomorrow, and for £1 you can be treated to a tour of the theatre.
The Apollo Theatre, Pyle Street, Newport. The Apollo players present It Could Be Any One of Us, Friday 31st of August to Saturday 8th of September, 7:30 p.m. No shows Sunday or Monday. Call 210-010.
Action on hearing loss will be at Bryston Methodist Church between 10 and 12 on Tuesday for its monthly drop-in. Advice, batteries, cleaning and retubing of NHS hearing aids. No appointment is necessary. For more information, ring 529533.
Isle of Wight Oddfellows Friendship Society is putting on an open day and historical display on Thursday. The free event is being held at Unity Hall, St Thomas's Square, Newport between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Other events include card games at Unity Hall on Wednesday and September 19th at 1:15 p.m, an evening out at Apollo Theatre on Thursday at 7:30 p.m, an outing to Bembridge Lifeboat Station on September the 10th at 2 p.m, 10-pin bowling at Ryde Super Bowl on September 17th at 2 p.m, and curry and quiz at Key Arts on September 26th from 7 p.m. To find out more, contact Maretta on 523 115.
This is another Action on Hearing Loss. What's on? Action on Hearing Loss will be at Sandown Health Centre, the Heights, Sandown, between 10 and 12 today, Friday, for their monthly drop-in. Come along for advice, batteries, cleaning and retubing of NHS hearing aids. No appointment necessary. More information can be obtained by ringing 529533. It will also be at Porter Court Lake between 10 and 11 on Wednesday.
A free entry live music night takes place at Strings Bar and Venue Newport on Thursday between 7:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. Performing on the night will be Mac Whitewood, Killing Morton and Luke James Hone.
To celebrate Heritage Open Days, Newport Roman Villa will be open free of charge on Saturday, September the 8th. Newport Roman Villa in Cypress Road was discovered in 1926. It has been described as one of the best examples of Roman baths in southern England. The villa has a Roman garden, activity room and a museum display, picture hunt and hands-on activities.
My Relatives Who Went to China, a talk by Jennifer Childs, is being given at the Riverside Centre, Newport, on Monday at 7:30 p.m. The talk is organised by the Isle of Wight Family History Society. Entry is £1 for members and £2 for non-members.
Young clarinetist in recital. C Music graduate Joshua Attrill present a clarinet recital in St John's Church, Newport on Sunday. Joshua was awarded a degree in music with a first-class honours by Cardiff University in July, and he starts his master's degree in September. The music played at the recital was used for his degree recital and for a recital for which he was awarded a clarinet diploma by the Royal Schools of Music last year. Joshua will be accompanied on the piano by Martin Dover. Admission is free, but donations will go to St John's 2020 Vision campaign. The recital starts at 3 p.m.
The Really Useful Cafe meets at West Wight Sports and Community Centre each Thursday from 10 a.m. to noon. Make new friends over a cup of tea and enjoy fun activities. This week, Michelle Newton of Four Seasons Cookery Academy is in attendance.
Shanklin Theatre have advertised a number of shows. Beyond the West End is on several nights. There's also the London Welsh Male Voice Choir, Jimmy Osborne, Ross Noble and Lucy Worsley. So contact them for more information, 86 8000.
The Isle of Wight branch of the Royal Naval Association meets on the first Tuesday of the month at the Simeon Arms in Ryde from 7:30 p.m. Shipmates are invited to come along for a noggin and natter. For further details, contact Dave Brown on 01983 617754.
There's an advert if you want to learn to play bridge. There's a free taster session. Refreshments are provided. There are two venues. One is George Street Centre, George Street Ryde, there's one venue in Ryde, and it's Saturday the 8th of September, 10:30 to 12:30. It's for all ages. Good fun, improves mental agility. And there's a contact name, Christine Norton, and her telephone number is 864869.
And that concludes today's version of the County Press. So it's goodbye, best wishes from Howard.
And from Pauline, goodbye.
This is the newsletter for Sight for Wight, August 2018. Our address is Millbrook House, 137 Carisbrook Road, Newport, Isle of Wight, PO 301DD. Telephone number 01983 522205. Email members at iwsb.org.uk, www.iwsb.org.uk.
Now, a message from the chairman. How great is this Spanish weather that we are enjoying. I came back from a holiday in Majorca recently. When I got off the plane in Southampton, I thought we were back in Mallorca. On 7th of June we had our volunteers' summer celebration at Millbrook House. 70s style fancy dress was optional. A lot of hard work was put into it by the staff to help make the day a great success. Free health checks were available at Millbrook House on the 12th of June. Those who attended were very pleased with the comprehensive way the checks were carried out. On the weekend of the 14th and the 15th of July, Sight for Wight attended the Rhythm Tree Festival. Many thanks to the staff and volunteers who manned our stall and helped promote the society. On the 19th of July, I ran a quiz at the Waverley Public House in Carisbrooke on behalf of the society. These are becoming a regular event and word of mouth is spreading fast. The next one will be in November. Exact date to be confirmed via Talking News, the website and Facebook. The Pride event in Ryde was held on Saturday the 21st of July and Sight for Wight attended. Thanks again for the staff and volunteers who manned the stall there for the society. More volunteers are always appreciated to help us at our various outreach events to publicise the society and to help raise funds. As always, it is the same few people without whom we couldn't survive. Wishing you all a great summer. Paul Rutherford, Chairman.
Message from the CEO. What a summer. I hope you've been enjoying this exceptionally warm and dry summer. The glorious weather has been a bonus at various members' activities that have taken place since May and indeed at fundraising outreach events. Member services. We're still working through the many plans and ideas generated by the member survey carried out last year, and in this issue there are reports and pictures from a number of recent activities that have taken place, including sea kayaking at Lake and the annual open day at the Royal Victoria Yacht Club in Fishbourne. The summer gathering for members held on the 14th of June at Millbrook House, with musical entertainment provided by the Wight Ukers, was greatly enjoyed as testified by comments and photos in the report, put together by Member Services Manager Laura Jasper. Where some proposed activities advertised did not gain enough member support to be viable, we have reviewed those plans and are preparing alternative proposals to address those areas of interest identified by members. The proposed 6-week yoga programme didn't attract sufficient members to make it viable, but work is in progress on arranging a single yoga taster session. It is hoped this will attract more members who may be interested in exploring this as a form of exercise. It is widely recognised that when practised regularly, yoga offers both physical and mental health benefits. These include increased flexibility, increased strength, improved balance, increased stamina, improved body alignment, reduces joint pain, stress reduction, body awareness, better sleep, improved self-confidence, relaxation. We will liaise with the yoga teacher to ensure that consideration is given to varying levels of fitness and mobility to make the activity as accessible as possible. Why not give it a try? The supper club proposal similarly did not attract sufficient interest in the form suggested, but because of the interest expressed by members in the survey in food and drink, you will find a new supper club column in this edition of the newsletter, featuring top tips and tried and tested recipes from members. You may have some ideas you would like to submit for the supper club column in future editions. From August, we welcome a new Member Services Administrative Assistant to provide support at Millbrook House, whilst the Member Service Manager is out and about on the island, supporting and delivering services and activities. Sue Young is already a very familiar face to many, as for the past 18 months she has provided regular voluntary cover at reception and as sighted escort for members.
Fundraising, income generation and legacies. With the summer season in full swing and the island awash with events targeted at both islanders and visitors, I would like to record my huge appreciation to the Sight for Wight volunteer ambassadors and the staff who have represented Sight for Wight at a number of major events. Attendance at these is vital to raise our profile amongst islanders and, of course, to help generate revenue. The Marketing, Communications and Fundraising Manager, Chris Kane, with support from several other team members, has done a great job in planning for, preparing and managing our new style of outreach stand, pictured over the page. Work is also in progress on grant applications, with submissions planned to enable the development of an education outreach programme aimed at primary-aged children on the island, and a separate application in progress to support members leading more active lifestyles. Work has also started on preparing a new legacy campaign to encourage islanders to think about leaving Sight for Wight a gift in their will. Also reported in this issue are other recent successes, with a cheque donation from Waitrose and another successful pub quiz night at the Waverley in Carisbrooke, organised by Paul Rutherford. Volunteers and volunteering. With regard to both supporting member services and fundraising, as ever we rely very much on the many and varied skills of our wonderful volunteers, who collectively give so much time in support of our work. Volunteer Manager Michelle Taylor highlights this in this issue, those areas we are especially keen to recruit new volunteers and the challenges ahead. From August, our volunteer manager will be reducing her regular working days from 3 to 2, usually Wednesdays and Thursdays, but will be supported by Susan Early, who changes role from supporting member services. We are confident Susan will quickly prove her great versatility in this role, as she has in others.
And now governance and regulatory change. Following the introduction of the new General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, we are continuing to work on the gradual migration of data from current spreadsheets, databases and other records onto the new bespoke database referenced previously. Key team members amongst staff and volunteers have been participating in data protection training sessions to support the necessary changes. As reported at the AGM, trustees reviewed at their May 2018 meeting their previous decision regarding the historic accidental overpayment of a former employee that was identified early in 2017. At the May meeting, the decision was made that further legal advice was required, and this was sought. Whilst a full report and advice is currently awaited from local solicitors approached, preliminary advice was that it might be possible to make a claim for some of the accidental overpayment. However, because of an employment tribunal claim being pursued by the former employee for constructive dismissal, unpaid wages, and for accrued but untaken holiday, the legal advice of our HR advisor was that the Society should not actively pursue such action whilst the employment tribunal claim was ongoing. Prior to the commencement of the employment tribunal process, the claimant sought redress through ACAS, seeking a payment of £3,800 to settle her claims. The Society declined entering into such a settlement as it did not support the claims made. The Employment Tribunal hearing took place in Southampton on the 11th and the 12th of June 2018, and the judgment of the Employment Tribunal judge was received by the Society on the 13th of July 2018. All of the claimant's spurious claims have been dismissed, and the Society has been completely vindicated. Details of the Employment Tribunal can now be shared, as all Employment Tribunal judgments are published online in the public domain.
www.gov.uk/employment-tribunal-decisions.
Preparation for the Employment Tribunal created a significant workload, and the trustees, myself and the staff team are delighted that all claims made were dismissed, meaning that time, effort and energy can once again be entirely devoted to taking the charity forward for the benefit of members. As the Employment Tribunal process has now been concluded, during the forthcoming August 2018 meeting, the trustees will review their initial decision not to seek repayment for the salary overpayment. By this time, the full report and legal advice regarding the possibility of seeking repayment is expected. Following the August meeting of trustees, It is hoped that a decision can be reached in the best interest of the charity that will draw a line under the regrettable matter of the salary overpayment.
Millbrook House Working Party. 2 formal meetings of the Working Party are scheduled for Tuesday the 11th of September 3:30pm to 4:30pm and Tuesday the 20th of November 2pm to 3pm. In addition, Working Party members will be invited to undertake visits to some other premises between the first formal meeting in September and the second meeting in November. Trusting this again provides a useful insight into our plans over the coming months. Following some blisteringly hot weeks we've had, I hope you've had the opportunity to enjoy reading this edition of the newsletter whilst enjoying a cool drink in the shade. Miriam Tong, Chief Executive, IWSB.
Have your say on the Isle of Wight sensory service. Island residents who have a sight, hearing or other sensory impairment are being asked to help shape support services on the Isle of Wight. The Council and the Isle of Wight Clinical Commissioning Group are currently reviewing the way in which sensory services are provided and want to make sure they are high quality and help people to maintain and improve their independence, both now and in the future. The online survey, which is also available in a hard copy, will be launched on Friday the 10th of August 2018, and this seeks the views of islanders who use the current sensory service. To complete the survey, there is a website available. Website www.surveymonkey.co.uk/small case r/5 capitals WZ5LVY. The survey ends at 5 o'clock on Friday the 14th of September 2018. On the 10th of September 2018, there will also be a public drop-in event at the Riverside Centre, the Quay, Newport, from 10 till 2 p.m, where people can discuss their views or receive help to complete the survey. Communication support will be provided for deaf sign language users at this event. People with a current sensory impairment registration will be sent a survey in the post. The survey can be returned by post. Alternatively, it can be completed online using a link, or it can be completed over the phone by calling People Matter IW on 241 494.
Mayflower Theatre, Southampton. A visit to the theatre with a guide dog is a challenge I took on for our 25th wedding anniversary, and it proved to be successful. We set off on the 9th of June to the Mayflower Theatre in Southampton to see War Horse. The crossing on the Red Jet was straightforward, and on providing proof of my visual impairment, my wife Claire travelled free as my sighted guide, along with Stevie, my guide dog. At Southampton, the free bus took us to the central station. There was a bridge over the railway leading to the north side of the track, which needed some negotiation, followed by a 10-minute walk to the Mayflower. Some people may prefer to take a taxi direct from the Red Jet to the theatre to avoid the station, bridge negotiation and walk. There is a pub next door to the theatre, which is convenient for a pre-show drink and meal, but they do advise to allow enough time to order and eat. Once we arrived at the Mayflower, we were met by Sarah, who was to be our dog sitter whilst we enjoyed the performance. She ensured us that all his doggy needs would be catered for, and off he went to meet 2 other dogs, who were also being cared for during the show. This was an audio-described performance, so I collected a headset and paid a £5 refundable deposit. We took a lift to the stalls and found our seats. A great show was performed. It was made all the better by Leslie Kirby's audio description of the action through the headset. At the end of the show, Sarah returned Stevie to us directly in the auditorium and told us how well he behaved with his new friends. The Mayflower is well worth a visit, and if you outline your requirements to them when booking, the staff will ensure that the whole experience will be enjoyed. Brett, Claire and Stevie Lamplord.
Additional information. The Mayflower runs an Access membership scheme which is free and helps them offer a better service to anyone with specific access needs. It is only open to those who genuinely require assistance visiting the theatre. By signing up for the scheme, it allows you to register for services or facilities you might need to use, get notifications of upcoming accessible performances or events, access the companion ticket rate, which entitles your companion to a ticket at half price. Once signed up, you receive a membership card. You will only need to produce proof of eligibility once a year for access to relevant discounts and benefits. Although the Mayflower does not have a set policy on guide dogs, if someone notifies them before their visit, then generally they can have a member of staff available who will look after the guide dog whilst the person is seeing the show. The guide dog is then brought back at the end of the performance. Audio described performances. The Mayflower aims to provide an audio described performance for the visually impaired at all productions which run for 2 weeks or more. This is a live commentary on what is happening on stage relayed to headphone-style receivers through an infrared system. Receivers need to be reserved at the time of booking as there are a limited number available. Seats in the front row are set aside for people with assistance dogs. Site visits. Patrons and their companions are welcome to visit the theatre prior to attending a performance in order to familiarise themselves with the venue's layout. These visits can be arranged through one of our front-of-house team. Touch tours. To accompany our audio-described performances, we regularly have a touch tour that precedes the show. Our touch tour allows visually impaired patrons the opportunity to familiarise themselves with elements of the set, props and costumes. Information leaflets regarding the Access membership are available from Sight for Wight, or information can be found on the Mayflower website, which is www.mayflower.org.uk.
Sight for Wight takes to the water. On Friday the 6th of July, in temperatures of around 24 degrees, Sight for Wight took to the water to enjoy an afternoon of kayaking. Laura Jasper, Member Services Manager, met up with members at Wight Water in Lake and, after getting set up with life jackets, paddles and suntan lotion, set off on tandem kayaks across the bay. Weather was calm and sunny, with a welcome breeze and a perfect way to spend an afternoon. Many thanks to all the team at Wight Water for being so helpful, and to Ruth, Nigel and Bridget for signing up to have a go at kayaking. We hope to repeat it in the future. And that's from Laura Jasper, the Member Services Manager.
Supper Club Summer Specials. Refreshing fruit smoothie, dairy-free and gluten-free. Basic ingredients: 2 bananas, peeled, sliced and frozen, 100 grams of fresh or frozen blueberries, 250 grams of orange juice, approximately 1 mug full. Method: place all ingredients in a blender and blitz for 30 to 60 seconds. Top tips: use bump-ons to mark your most frequently used blender buttons. When you buy a bunch of bananas, freeze some down before they over-ripen. Reuse small plastic oblong-lidded containers, frequently used for Chinese takeaway dishes. Ideal for 2 sliced bananas. Use any combination of soft fruits in season for variation. Try adding a chunk or 2 of root ginger to add an extra zing. Guacamole appetizer / lunch. Dairy-free and gluten-free. Basic ingredients: 2 ripe avocados, halved, stoned and peeled. Juice of a large lime, or 2 tablespoons of lime juice concentrate. Salt, ground black pepper, ground cayenne or paprika pepper to taste. Method: place all ingredients in a blender and blitz for 60 seconds. Top tips: use bump-ons to mark preferred blender button settings. Variations of this recipe can be tried to suit your taste. Add a small fresh chilli for some extra heat. For extra flavour, add a handful of pitted green olives and cherry tomatoes or some garlic. Serve with tortilla chips as an appetizer or grate with toast for lunch. Sourcing gluten-free tortilla chips / bread if appropriate.
The Royal Victoria Yacht Club Open Day. Many thanks to the Royal Victoria Yacht Club for permission to use this report from their website and for inviting Sight for Wight to such a great event. With flags fluttering on a sunny day, the Royal Victoria Yacht Club in Fishbourne opened its doors on Saturday the 30th of June 2018 for its annual Open Day for People with Disabilities. We have a long-standing tradition of inviting people with disabilities to enjoy a day at the RVYC, dating back to 1981 when the late Betty Matthews organised the first event to mark the International Year of Disabled Persons. This year, over 190 guests ranging in age from 4 to 90 enjoyed the day and managed over 450 people trips out on the Solent. 12 boats were used for the thrill seekers on fast ribs that went to Osborne Bay, to Victoria pottering up and down Wootton Creek. The longest waiting list was for Spirit of Scott Barder, the Disabled Sailing Association's specialist wheelchair-carrying yacht, which supports the event every year. It was a magnificent sight to see this catamaran in full sail, with so many smiling faces on board. Shoreside, guests were treated to a barbecue, Mingella's ice cream, tea and cakes, while Bob's Basement Band provided music. Munch Bunch and their team in the Club Galley were also supplying endless food, and the burger station was a cool place to be. The tombola was as popular as always, and the table was practically cleared of wine, cakes, ornaments and toys by the end of the day. The Commodore, Steve Sheridan, commented, "It was wonderful to be able to welcome so many islanders to our club on Saturday who are not usually able to get out on the water. Our members turned out en masse to enable people of all ages and with a range of disabilities to use our facilities and enjoy sailing and motorboating on a glorious summer day. A huge amount of effort went into organising the day, and we were delighted to welcome the Lord Lieutenant and Lady Wight, as well as the High Sheriff, Joya Minghella Giddens, and her husband Richard. The organising committee of Anne Capps, Rosemary Montero and Nigel Talbot were supported by over 90 volunteers on shore, and the owners, skippers and crew of boats lent by members and community organisations on the water. The RVYC is indebted to event donors including the Daisy Rich Trust, Fishbourne Council, BAE Systems Cows Employees Charity Fund and Whitelink. Special thanks to the shoreside crew, members of the parking, meet and greet team, the registration team, the life jacket team, the shore crew team, the catering team, the embarkation crew, the pontoon team and a first aider.
Summer gathering for members. Sight for Wight hosted a summer party for their members at Millbrook House on the 14th of June, enjoying light refreshments and Pim's cocktails. We were delighted to welcome the Wight Ukers, who kindly donated their time to come along and perform some amazing sing-along numbers. Members enjoyed joining in with the singing, and there was dancing in the aisles. Everyone had a great afternoon. I'd like to thank all who attended and the staff and volunteers who helped to make it a successful event.
My Guide. Sight for Wight, in collaboration with Guide Dogs, are launching a free scheme on the Isle of Wight called My Guide. The scheme matches a person living with sight loss with a volunteer. Together they meet for a couple of hours every week and work on aims, goals and confidence. The scheme is ideal for anyone living with sight loss who would like to improve on their independence. Maybe you would like to join a local hobby group but need some assistance familiarising yourself with the area. Or you would like to learn a route to your local shops. With your volunteer, you can realise these aims. Sight for Wight is currently recruiting for volunteer My Guides. You can make a real difference to someone living with sight loss. This exciting and fulfilling volunteering opportunity would suit someone who likes to get out and about and could spare 2 to 3 hours a week. Full training following the Guide Dogs My Guide certificated programme and ongoing support and supervision are provided. Volunteers must be over 18 and would require a DBS check. The one-day training programme for interested volunteers is available at Millbrook House on each of the following dates: Wednesday, 5th of September, Tuesday, 9th of October, or Tuesday, 27th of November. To register your interest or for more information, please contact Laura Jasper, Member Services Manager, on 01983 522205.
Isle of Wight Pride 2018, on Saturday the 21st of July on Ryde Seafront. Sight for Wight, we're delighted to be part of the Isle of Wight Pride event. Over 15,000 people attended on a glorious, if somewhat hot, sunny day. Myself, Michelle Taylor, Volunteer Manager, Ruth Hollingshead, Fletch Hollingshead and Chris Stevens, volunteers, were in attendance, manning the stand where we promoted our new trendy sunglasses, pen torches and key ring torches, together with demonstrating some of our low vision equipment. The slim specs were of great interest to people who were able to get an idea of what it's like to have a visual impairment. Footfall for the day was very good, and we were able to engage a number of people in conversation, asking about the charity and what we offer. Apart from selling 23 pairs of sunglasses, a record this year at events so far, we made a number of useful contacts, including companies offering to provide prizes for our popular short story writing competition, entertainers who came forward to sing for our Wednesday social, and the opportunity to chat with other charities and companies and do some networking. Sight for Wight also featured in a video entitled 7-2, which to date has reached over 7,000 people. If you get the opportunity to watch this video, which is on our website, then we are number 53. It was lovely to chat with so many other charities and to be part of such an exciting event. Our Sight for Wight stand looked professional and approachable, and the new look gazebo and banner were eye-catching from some distance. As well as Isle of Wight Pride this year, we also attended Rhythm Tree Festival and Riverfest, and forthcoming events include Chale Show, Jack Up the 80s, Wolverton Manor, and another new event for the autumn, Island Con at Cowes Enterprise College. We look forward to seeing you, so please come and say hello. Chris Kane, Marketing, Communications and Fundraising Manager.
Volunteer News Round. Welcome. We're pleased to welcome 4 new volunteers to the team. 2 volunteers will be based at Dress for Less as retail customer care support. 1 volunteer as a reader with the Talking News team, and another supporting with refreshments at our weekly coffee mornings here at Millbrook House. Au revoir. Sadly, we've said goodbye to 2 volunteers from our home visiting team, one of whom has supported the Society in her volunteer role for 22 years and is looking forward to her well-earned retirement. Shirley said, "Every day of my volunteering has been a pleasure." Volunteer vacancies. We have volunteer vacancies in various roles, for example, minibus escort, minibus drivers, home visitors, sighted guides for our monthly walks, Dress for Less, that's retail volunteers and lead volunteers, and support with fundraising, events ambassadors throughout the summer months. Should you know anyone who may be interested, please let me know and I will be happy to send an application pack or discuss the various volunteer roles available. My Guide cited volunteer vacancies. In collaboration with Guide Dogs, we are promoting and developing a sighted guide service with particular emphasis on people who have recently been diagnosed with sight impairment and for those whose sight may have deteriorated, and this has impacted on their confidence in getting out and about in the community. Further information regarding the My Sight Guide can be found in this article on page 19 of the newsletter. Fundraising via bucket collections at supermarkets. Supermarkets across the island have agreed to support Sight for Wight with fundraising by way of bucket collections. We desperately need volunteers to support this either AM or PM on the following dates: Friday 14th of September and Saturday 15th of September. Please contact me if you're able to help. Morning sessions are 10 AM to 1 PM and afternoon sessions are 1 PM to 4 PM.
Volunteer Thank You Party, 7th of June 2018. What a fab party it was. It all kicked off early in the morning upon staff arriving at the office, where the team were greeted with 70s disco music blaring out and Miriam appearing in her sparkling catsuit to get us all in the party mood. Much laughter ensued, and this helped us all to prepare and work hard for the busy day ahead. Smart, motivational and fun move Miriam. This comes from somebody who is not a morning person, but I loved it. Volunteers later arrived in their glory, dressed in a selection of fun and themed outfits, into which it was evident a lot of thought, work and ideas came together to create a great atmosphere and much hilarity. Prizes for best dress went to one of our trustees who clearly had a John Lennon slant in his attire, and the female prize went to a Dress for Less volunteer who had personally crocheted a flower garland for her hair and a handbag to match. Miriam's Chief Executive Officer thanked all volunteers for all the support so generously given to the Society over the last year, and special thanks extended to Joyce Brown, Admin and Reception, Abraham Anthony and John Moore. Following a lovely homemade 70s themed buffet prepared and served by Helen, disco dancing proceeded with the staff team taking to the floor and producing their own choreographed dance routine to Saturday Night Fever, which was well received by those present. Chris very kindly videoed the debut. This is an annual event where trustees and staff have the chance to extend a sincere thank you to all of our volunteers. I would also like to extend a personal thank you to my colleagues for all their ideas, work and support to help make this event a roaring success. Training. Forthcoming training sessions to be held at Millbrook House are 6th and 11th of November, health and safety and safeguarding, 2 mirror sessions on each day. Volunteer team update. The next volunteer team update will be held on Wednesday the 12th of September 2018 at Millbrook House, 4:30pm to 6:30pm. Michelle Taylor, Volunteer Manager.
Dress for Less. I would like to say a huge thank you to all the lovely volunteers and fabulous customers of Dress for Less. They've made me feel very welcome in my first 3 months as manager. I arrived with a number of new ideas which have already been implemented, and the feedback has been extremely positive from everybody that has visited us. The number of new customers has increased quite remarkably, and both they and original customers have complimented us all on the new shop layout, displays and ease of moving around the shop floor. Many customers have complimented us on the fact that, unlike other dress shops, we take the time to provide a personal and friendly experience for everybody. Due to a change in policy, customers can now leave their items with us for longer, and I am delighted to report that sales for this quarter have increased significantly. I very much hope this continues over the coming months. I look forward to helping more ladies find their perfect outfit for that special occasion. We have lovely new stock arriving on a daily basis, with many items selling within just a few hours of being put on display. With the daily turnover, it is always worth popping in when passing to see what is new. We will be very happy to see you. Finally, I take my proverbial hat off to all the lovely gentlemen that show great patience and understanding when their good ladies are trying out different outfits. I know, because they frequently tell us, that they appreciate our comfy chair. And that's from Debbie Durbridge, Dress for Less Manager.
What's on at Sight for Wight is the Ride Swimming Group. Our swimming group meets every Tuesday evening from 8pm till 8:45pm at the Waterside Pool in Ride. They have exclusive use of the pool during this session. The group is open to any visually impaired person who is a keen swimmer or who just enjoys being in the water. The pool's lifeguards are in attendance during the session. Pre-registering with the Society is essential, otherwise you may be refused admittance.
Wednesday coffee morning. We hold a coffee morning each week on a Wednesday at Millbrook House from 10am till 11:30am. All are welcome to join us for a cup of tea or coffee and cake. The cost is £1 and the group is open to all, not just members. On the first Wednesday of each month, we are joined by the Macular Society for their monthly meet-up.
Wednesday low vision drop-in. Every Wednesday between 10am and 12pm, we hold a low vision drop-in session. This coincides with the coffee morning and allows you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. If this time is not suitable for you, then you are welcome to call the Society to make an appointment to view our low vision equipment.
Wednesday social group. Our Wednesday social group meets every fortnight from 2 p.m. at Millbrook House. The group has different speakers who come to give talks on a variety of subjects. These have ranged from singers to ghost talks. After the talk, the group chat over a cup of tea or coffee before going home. This group is open to non-members, but please register your interest in advance.
And the Thursday social group. The Thursday social group meets every week from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. at Millbrook House, where they engage with other visually impaired people. They socialise and enjoy lunch together. In the afternoon, the group become welcome volunteers who come in to read from various books about local history, general fiction, or a more popular choice, comedy. This group is open to non-members, but please register your interest in advance.
Monthly book group. Sight for Wight hold a book group on the second Wednesday of each month at Lord Louis Library in Newport. The group runs from 2 p.m. for about an hour. We discuss the last month's book and then hand out the book for the next month. Books are available on USB stick or CD. Refreshments are provided and guide dogs are welcome. There's no charge to join the book group. If you'd like more information, please call Laura Jasper on 01983 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Strollers.
Strollers meet on the second Tuesday of the month. They go for gentle strolls, enjoying the countryside or coastal views. This is followed by lunch at a pub or restaurant. The group is open to all visually impaired people who like a leisurely walk of about a mile.
Striders. Striders meet on the last Friday of every month. They walk on different routes around the island and then finish off with lunch at a local pub or restaurant. This group is open to all visually impaired people who like longer walks in the countryside.
Bowling. The bowling group meets once a month at LA Bowl in Ryde. The cost is £3.95 for 2 games. This group is open to all visually impaired people. Please note there is no transport for this group.
Golf. The golfers meet once a month on a Sunday morning at Westridge Golf Club Ryde. The group go onto the driving ranges and out onto the course. An instructor is available to help out beginners. The golf session lasts around an hour and is followed by refreshments and a chat in the cafe. If you're interested in joining any of the activities, please contact the Society for more information on 01983 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Transport may be available to some of the groups.
Autumn activities, social evening at the Key Arts Newport. Sight for Wight invite members to join us at the Key Arts Centre on Wednesday 26th of September between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. for drinks and nibbles. Please RSVP on the details below. The Key Arts Centre also holds a weekly quiz that evening from 7 p.m. for anyone that wishes to take part. Teams of 4 at £5 each, including vegetarian curry. Call the Key Arts direct on 822 490 to book your table.
Yoga taster session. Sight for Wight are holding a yoga taster session at Millbrook House on Friday the 5th of October from 1:30 p.m. The cost for the session is £6 per person and spaces are limited. Enjoy a beautifully gentle restorative yoga flow and a deeply relaxing guided meditation, giving your body and mind a chance to free itself, unwind and let go. Feel the benefits after just one session. The session will last approximately 1.5 hours. Enclosed with this newsletter are the activity sign-up sheets.
Climbing wall at West Wight Sports Centre. Join Sight for Wight at West Wight Sports Centre on their indoor climbing wall on Monday the 1st of October 2018 at 1:30 p.m. The cost is £10 per person and spaces are limited. 2 instructors will be joining us to offer support and instruction for the 1.5 hour session. Participants will need to be physically fit and capable of climbing the wall, but also sign a waiver provided by the Sports Centre. Enclosed with this newsletter are the activity sign-up sheets. For all events, please call Laura Jasper to register your interest, or for more information on 522-205, or email members at iwsb.org.uk.
And now some dates for your diary. Sight for Wight Members Forum 2018 dates. The forums will be held at Millbrook House between 12 noon and 1:30pm on the following dates. All members are welcome to attend. Agendas and minutes are available on our website. Monday, 15th of October 2018, 11am to 12:30pm.
Save the date, more details to follow. We will be taking part in the Christmas Fair at the Riverside Centre in Newport on Saturday the 8th of December. The members' Christmas afternoon with mulled wine and mince pies will be held on Thursday the 13th of December, 2 to 4pm. The story writing competition award ceremony will take place on Monday the 17th of December.
Low Vision Day. We will be holding a Low Vision Open Day here at Millbrook House on Wednesday, 19th of September, 10am till 3pm. Confirmed exhibitors at the time of printing are Professional Vision Services, Dolphin Software and the Age UK Digital Expert. Our low vision aids and resources will also be on display.
Visit us at upcoming events. Our team of ambassadors and staff will be out and about at various events around the island this summer, promoting our new sunglasses, keyring torch and pen torch, so please come along and say hello and buy some trendy sunglasses. We will be at the following events. 1st to the 2nd of September, Wolverton Manor. 20th to the 21st of October, Island Con - the Isle of Wight Comic Con. That's Chris Kane, Marketing, Communications and Fundraising Manager.
And now the low vision equipment. We have a selection of new and pre-owned low vision equipment in our resource room, which is available to purchase. Currently in stock, liquid level indicators, bump-ons, bandits, talking watches and keychain watches, talking tins, portable folding LED light, a selection of pre-owned talking clocks. Different models vary, but they generally state the time in a clear voice, and some have alarm and date functions as well. Selling pre-owned for £5 to £15 depending on the model. And we have pre-owned daisy players. If you are interested in any of these items, they are available to view at our weekly low vision drop-in session on Wednesday mornings at Millbrook House from 10am till 12 noon. Alternatively, please contact Laura Jasper on our number 522205 or on the website members@iwsb.org.uk.
And articles wanted. We are interested in articles from members or volunteers for our quarterly newsletters. If you would like to submit an article with or without photos, please email inquiries@iwsb.org.uk. Please ensure that you have permission of people featured in any photos to use their image.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Few topics in all the time I've been working on In Touch have raised as much heat as that of shared spaces. In theory, we're talking about the concept of making our city centres less bound by rules and making them more informal, blurring the distinctions between motorists, cyclists and pedestrians. Put like that, it sounds attractive, doesn't it? But what it's meant for many blind and partially sighted people has been the removal of the distinction between the pavement and the road and the decontrolling of crossings. And suddenly, for many blind people, walking around in their cities, which used to feel safe, has become far more hazardous. I've been reporting on this development for the past 10 years. This encounter with Joel Young in the centre of Reading in 2015 was typical.
Well, the problem is it's a shared surface junction, so there's no tactile clue as to when you're leaving the footway to when you're crossing over the carriageway. And in January, the council switched off the traffic lights, so now there's no audible clue or even tactile clue in terms of the spinning cone to tell you when the traffic stop and when it's safe to cross. And I'm registered blind, so I can't see traffic to know when it's stopped.
You do have a dog.
I do.
Can the dog not cope with this situation?
No, it's always up to the guide dog owner to know when it's safe to cross. The dog is trained to walk in a straight line, guide its owner around obstacles, stop at curbs, steps, find road crossings. So it is really tricky, really. You know, you could take a chance and be lucky sometimes, but obviously it only takes one time to get it wrong. You get hit by a bus. So I'm just waiting to really tell when it's safe to cross. I would normally go over to the right because I would expect to use the Pelican crossing that's here to stop the traffic, but that of course is now not in use, so I just have to wait for someone to help me cross, really. I have some sites so I can try and use that to ask people, but of course people are busy themselves, you know, not everyone will have time to stop and help. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Excuse me. I could have been across by now and back probably. Excuse me. It takes some time, yeah, it can take some time. Could you help me cross this road, please?
Yeah, of course I can, yeah.
Can you help me cross the road, please? I need help to get across the road because the lights have been switched off.
Yeah, I know. I don't agree with it. Hopefully they're switching back on again.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Thank you.
See, that's something that, if had the lights been switched on, would have taken me, 20 seconds. I had to wait, over a couple of minutes to find someone to help me cross the road. And, you times that by, 3 or 4 times a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot of time wasted waiting at a crossing.
Would you avoid this area? I mean, can you avoid this area to do what you need to do?
Yes, I can go into Oxford and go shopping. But it just means that, if I go to meet work colleagues after work, they say, we'll meet in Reading, it makes me say, hold on a minute, I need help to get there, and I shouldn't have to do that. It's not fair, really. It's not fair.
Well, Reading Borough Council say that they did talk to blind groups at the time, and there were changes to the project, which they say has operated successfully since 2016. They tell us they haven't yet formally examined the government's advice on shared spaces, but they will pay it careful attention in any future traffic schemes. Which brings us to the first real sign that central government is looking seriously at the concerns of visually impaired people about shared spaces. Last month, the government announced its inclusive transport plans, and that announcement included a request to local authorities that they should call a halt to shared spaces schemes currently in the planning stage. Transport Minister Nusrat Ghani told In Touch what she had in mind.
I know that shared spaces work very well for those individuals that are disabled and in a wheelchair, but it doesn't work for all. And what we don't want to do in any way is to knock back the confidence of people with disabilities, including those with visual impairment, not to go out of their home and use public transport.
A lot of visually impaired people just think they are intrinsically dangerous and would like to see this idea dropped altogether. Any chance you might do that?
Well, it might come to that. It might come to that, but we need to just do a bit more research into it. Shared spaces in themselves can be quite varied. And I know that in my own constituency, when research was undertaken, they focused mostly on those in wheelchairs and not those with visual impairment. So unfortunately, poor decisions can be made.
Transport Minister Nusrat Ghani. Well, joining me now is someone who's dedicated a great deal of time and energy to the whole issue of shared spaces. Former Paralympic athlete Chris Holmes, now Lord Holmes. Lord Holmes, you've commissioned reports, you've spoken in the House, you've spearheaded campaigns. How significant is what's been seen as really a moratorium on councils who have shared spaces schemes in the pipeline? What do you see as the significance of this?
I don't think it would be overstating it to say that finally this is the end of the road for so-called shared space.
That's a big statement. I mean, because it's not simply the ones which are in the pipeline, it's the ones that are already there. When you say the end of the road, what exactly do you mean?
In the report I did in 2015, I called for a moratorium on all so-called shared spaces, and what we saw from the department's statement is that they have supported that moratorium on all shared spaces which are under design. I think what you'll see as a result of that is this concept falling apart brick by brick, as indeed many of the schemes have already done so, literally.
But as I understand it, it is still only a request. I suppose it could be seen as a guideline. So how actually is it going to work? And do we know whether local authorities have yet responded?
It's a request indeed, as you correctly say, but it's also accompanied by the Minister writing to the chief executives of all local authorities and putting in very clear terms what she believes, as the Minister and the Department believes, should happen when it comes to these schemes. There's still a lot that needs to be done to ensure the very simple but basic principle that everybody should be able to access their local area in an independent way, and which can happen if all of the public realm is based on inclusive design.
Well, let's pick up on that point you made, because of course it can't have an effect on the shared space schemes which are already in place. So before we carry on, we wanted to perhaps update my report from a city centre. Preston has had a shared spaces scheme for the past 4 years. Rick Moore is one of those visually impaired people who says that the introduction of uncontrolled crossings, the removal of the distinction between pavements and roads, has all meant that he's much less confident about using his city centre. Reporter Tom Walker, who in the days when he worked at the County Council in Lancashire spoke out about the problem of shared spaces, he's gone back with Rick for another look.
We're stood outside the Fishergate Centre, where the colour of the pavement is a beige, but at the edge of the pavement there's a black curbstone which drops down maybe 2 inches to a road which is the same dark colour. And they will try and step over that into the road, but what they're actually doing is then catching themselves on the edge of the dark paving and risking turning their ankle and falling into the road.
I have to confess as well that I got it completely wrong. I'm using my cane here, and that's the beige bit, and then as you go into the darker area, it doesn't feel or sound any different to me. Rick, the scheme was completed some 4 years ago. How has it affected you?
I would say that it's made me think longer and harder about routes I'm going to navigate around Preston when I visit. There are certain areas that kind of become off limits. On the whole, it's not stopped me coming to Preston entirely, but I would say it's reduced the number of trips I make here.
Stuart Clayton, who's the Chief Executive of Galloway Society for the Blind, which is a local charity. You obviously work very, very closely with a lot of visually impaired people. What are they saying to you about Fishergate?
Well, we've been communicating with Lancashire County Council. We've been trying to explain how difficult it is for blind and partially sighted people to navigate these spaces. We have quite a number of people that say they won't come into Preston anymore. So actually some of the feedback that we get has dropped off. Well, that's predominantly because people just won't enter the space. We know one young couple, very mobile, very independent, and they just won't come into Preston at all now.
Rick, from your point of view, what are the specific problems here on Fishergate and other shared space schemes that you've actually experienced?
I was actually in a taxi the other morning and a gentleman stepped out onto an unmarked crossing. The taxi driver said, "Look at this idiot, what does he think he's doing?" And I pointed out to the taxi driver that he was crossing on an unmarked crossing, and the taxi driver wasn't even aware that that crossing was a crossing. So this is very much the state of play for us. We have crossings that the council see as crossings. We find it difficult to spot them, and when we do try to use them, we don't get the response that we're used to on a typical pedestrian or pelican crossing. I'm standing opposite County Hall on Fishergate Hill, where there's an uncontrolled crossing, which is right on the very edge of the shared space scheme, and at a point where cars are coming off, they're slowed down narrower part of the shared space and speeding up going through the crossing. The guidance that we've been given is that we have to make eye contact with drivers. Now, being visually impaired, I would struggle to make eye contact with somebody more than 6 feet away. I don't know how I'm supposed to do it to somebody in a moving vehicle through a thick pane of glass. It's just not feasible.
I'm tempted to say let's try and cross the road, but I'm worried about the safety now.
Well, I've just been stood here and there's been 8 cars that have gone past. Well, there's been people stood here waiting to cross, and those people did have vision. They could see, but nobody stopped.
Lancashire County Council and other local authorities would, however, say they consulted widely and that they incorporated lots of those suggestions into the final scheme. Isn't it the case that maybe the wider good should prevail here, and that we as visually impaired people just have to accept that business is up and it does look more attractive?
Absolutely not. This is a public realm. It should be accessible for the public, to include visually impaired people and all people with disabilities. I do not underestimate how difficult it is to get a surrounding area, public area, that's accessible for all, but they should be making more of an attempt to it.
Rick, the government has now requested that local authorities pause the introduction and implementation of shared space schemes.
I welcome that. I think until they've come up with a more inclusive design, then a pause is exactly where it should be sat.
Absolutely welcome it. The problem is it's a request, not a statement. So we're still struggling with the term shared space now. What we're seeing is some of the schemes reverting back to another title. They're not calling it a shared space. We need to make sure that the government are clear about making sure that the public realm is accessible for visually impaired people as well as the general populace.
Would you like to see local authorities such as this one here in Lancashire just actually get rid of these shared space schemes?
The short answer is yes for us, obviously. We're not against the development of the public realm and making the aesthetics look better for the people of Preston and surrounding areas. But what we are against is them not being inclusive for visually impaired people. And there is a fundamental flaw with the shared space schemes themselves, in that you have to, in order to cross a road at an uncontrolled crossing, you have to rely on making eye contact with the driver.
Because people have stayed away from shared space, we're almost at a situation where there needs to be greater guidance, and we need to see local authorities going above and beyond to encourage people back. It's almost a once bitten twice shy kind of a thing.
Do you think there are some blind and partially sighted people who would just simply never return to the centre of a town like this one?
I have no doubt about that, yeah, absolutely.
Rick Moore ending Tom Walker's report. And Lancashire County Council have told us that they've no plans for any new shared space projects. As for Fishergate itself, they say the scheme has resulted in road safety improvements for all road users, and that collisions involving pedestrians have reduced significantly. Lord Holmes, listening to that, your initial report on this highlighted the fact that a lot of blind people were saying it was inhibiting their travel in city centres, as Rick said there. But of course, it was a new concept and people don't like change. Do you think there's any sign that people perhaps are becoming used to the idea that there is a different way to do things than fixed pavements and roads and rigid separation of road users?
I certainly think it's always worth looking at innovation and what can be done to make the public realm as attractive, as appealing as it can be, but none of that is worth a candle if it's not predicated on inclusive design. I think what we've seen is, rather than people becoming used to these so-called shared spaces, what you've seen is an increasing number of people who avoid them. In 2015, my report showed that 35% of people actively avoided shared space. There's evidence that that number has increased, and that's over a third of your local community effectively planned out of these areas. That cannot in any sense be justified.
And do we know actually how many shared space schemes there are now?
In the hundreds, and with almost that number on the drawing board. But what we need to ensure now is that these so-called shared spaces don't try and emerge under a different name, a different wrapper, a different brand, because that was the whole use of shared space in the first place. It was seen as an incredibly positive marketing device. When myself and other campaigners were able to point out deficiencies, it became somewhat less appealing to use. So what we need to ensure is that they don't reappear under a separate label.
For you, the moratorium is encouraging, but there are still these hundreds of existing schemes, some of which have involved major engineering work. Do you want to see these systems actually scrapped, reversed, and is that really practical?
What needs to happen is that all of the schemes that are currently laid out, and this was another recommendation from my report in 2015, which I called Accidents by Design, another recommendation was that all existing schemes should undergo a clear accessibility audit, and whatever retrofitting that was required to enable those schemes to be fully accessible should be undertaken. And indeed, you've seen that in a number of schemes up and down the country, with controlled crossings being reinstated. And controlled crossings are such a key principle to enable all people to effectively, comfortably, crucially, safely access their local areas. So what you've seen is a lot of reinstatement. That's a further use of public money, but it has to be done now. These inaccessible architectural follies, planning conceits have been laid out up and down the country.
Lord Holmes. And that's just about it for today, except to remind you that next week we'll be talking to the RNIB about its plans after a fraught couple of years, which have involved successive deficits and the resignation of their chief executive after concerns about the safeguarding of pupils at a school for which they were responsible. We'll be talking to their interim chief executive, Elliot Lyne, and their chair, Ellie Southwood.
I really understand how this situation would, I think, make it quite difficult for people to have confidence in RNIB. This is the organisation that made sure that I could read with my fellow pupils when I was at school. This is the organisation that's ensured I'm able to get out and about independently. And it's the organisation that's ensured that people have what they are entitled to in terms of support. That is a future worth fighting for. It has been a really tough time financially for us, along with lots of other charities, and we have had to make some fundamental changes. There is much more change that needs to happen, and to be honest, some pretty radical changes that we need to put in place quickly.
We'd like to hear your questions to ask alongside ours about any aspect of RNIB governance or services that you want to know more about. You can call our action line on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after the programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or click on Contact Us on our website. From me, Peter Wight, producer Kevin Corr and the team, goodbye.